Welcome everyone, Simon here from the Whales of Wall Street. We have an energy sector video for you guys today, combining two of our favorite projects and ones that we hold in the portfolio, Power Ledger and Energy Web, EWT, POWR respectively on the exchanges if you're looking for those tokens. Guys, we covered recently a really cool interview with Dr. Gemma from Power Ledger, CEO and founder, etc. of that system. Absolutely phenomenal upgrades they're doing to their own chain and forking off to make their own chain within. But we had a big conversation around peer-to-peer energy trading. This is the ability for anyone to become essentially a prosumer rather than just a consumer, to pass energy credits through blockchain, the transparency aspect, the algorithms, the price, etc. Avoid potential unstable costs or inflated costs that we see with standard rates and energy companies off national grids, performing absolute craziness in terms of the cost that we have to absorb as bill payers on a monthly basis. These days hopefully will come to an end, or at least filter out, at least with the ability of decentralization in the energy sector. Now, we covered in that particular video some research that we did on this channel relating to some developments here in the UK around the UK's energy bill. And this isn't talking about bills that we get through the post, unfortunately. This is talking about the actual energy bill, a law passing ability of legislation that's going through Parliament right now. It's in its final amendment stages, so the development and the progress of this has been quite quick. We'll go into that a bit more detail in a second, and how that's coming towards roll assent and law approval, with imminent implementation potentially in the next coming months, and certainly within this next 12 months or year period. Guys, before we do that, before we go on to more detail, please do smash that subscribe button if you haven't done so already, and do check out the other videos on the channel as well. A multitude of different topics and discussions, and of course as well, go and check out the YouTube shorts. Hopefully they come out as notifications on your YouTube apps or platforms on desktop as and when we deliver them. We cover a load of different topics on a daily basis. Some really interesting ones recently actually going through around the property markets, etc., and the electronic trade bills and so on and so forth. So check those out as well. But let's go into this in a bit more detail. So here in the UK, and I'm sure it's very similar worldwide, the same sort of similar narratives of governments going against the developments or the progression of energy sustainability and reduction. Of course, these CO2 targets, energy targets for 2030 and 2050, net zero, especially as a narrative around these kind of discussions. But there's more U-turns going on around the UK, and this of course rolls people up significantly here in the United Kingdom, and I'm sure it does worldwide as well. But I'm always an advocate of follow the money, guys. Now, this is very heavily orientated around the insulation aspects, which is where people have sometimes grants, or in the instance of being able to insulate our houses with, I think it's like a foam or something. There's loads of other ways of doing it. Some people use the like cotton insulation side of stuff, and the idea was that many years ago, I always remember when I was a kid, I think my mum and dad had this in their house, insulating their house. It was part of a grant scheme for free, and the government essentially contracted out to small businesses or sole traders, etc., to come out and do that, and they would be subsidized for the cost. Of course, we always pay for that. It always looks like it's a free initiative, but we do pay for that through tax, guys, let's be honest. So there's a bit of a U-turn here. And I mentioned just a minute ago about following the money. Well, for me personally, Rishi Sunak, as I said, did a video probably back in 2021, maybe even 2021, sorry, that's when the channel started. I said Sunak would be the next Prime Minister. Why? Because there's a huge blockchain initiative behind him. He's a big advocate of cryptography. He has the London Innovation Hub created under his remit, certainly when he was the Chancellor, the person involved in the budgeting of the UK's money, and of course then became Prime Minister. And I knew this was going to happen, and I knew the King Charles obviously would come in at some point, because he is also a member of the World Economic Forum, or a certain leading member of that for sure, and a graduate, Sunak is, of the World Economic Forum as well, as many of the politicians around the world are. The chess pieces are in play, guys. So yes, we might move away from certain initiatives that are mentioned in this particular area, where it's suggested that he's U-turning on this. But honestly, in my mind, I'm like, well, why on earth would we want to go for some of this archaic stuff when actually the definitive huge issue is the cost of energy? to us as users. This is where it gets ridiculous, because ultimately there is no gigantic reason behind why we should be paying these high bills. And it ultimately comes from the lack of transparency, where we're getting our energy sources from. There's a lot of energy wastage, which we are having those bills passed on to us as users as well. And just natural resource is depleting. And we're going to renewable energy sources, which is the biggest it's ever been. In fact, this is the market value. It's absolutely gigantic. Renewable energy market size worldwide in 2021 and the forecast to 2030. Look at these absolutely huge numbers. The market will reach over $2 trillion by 2030. There's a lot of money in this sector, so why are we paying for this? It's quite staggering, really, because even my energy supplier, E.ON, boasts 100% renewable energy, something we've all been waiting for in our lifetimes to see that development and that progress. But hang on a minute, my energy bills are the highest they've ever been, through standard rates and all of these kind of things. You're sitting there going, well, how is that possible if I'm getting stuff free from the sun and wind? Offshore farms are in abundance here in the UK, as I'm sure they are across the world. Along with land as well, more farmers than ever before, thanks to the agricultural bill in 2020 shutting down a lot of farming business, have now turned to farming in the sense of wind and solar. Fair enough, farming is farming, right? Doesn't matter whether it's agricultural or farming of energy potentially. So that's fine. But yes, to me personally, and I'm sure you feel this as well around the world, the pinch on the energy bills is absolutely staggering, and there's no real need for it. We've got supposedly organisations trying to save us like Ofgem, etc. I just think they're all part of the membership of governments anyway, and people who used to work in government and so on and so forth, who are just basically pretending that we have a system that's supposed to be protecting us when it actually doesn't, and it's done really nothing, along with many organisations around the world. So we come to this conclusion of the opportunity of potential peer-to-peer energy systems. Now, as we get constant protests around Insulate Britain and all these other things that are going on around with oil and fuel, I find it quite interesting. I have been stuck in a few traffic jams on the M25 here in the UK towards the London Orbital, the huge motorway. People probably know of the M25 worldwide. It's a historic road in the UK, always messy, slow in most cases. And I have been stuck in some of these protests before on my way to work, and it is frustrating. But of course, there's narratives behind it, and ultimately, I'm not a huge advocate of these weird YouTube ones. I think a lot of them are staged. You can see that significantly. They're always in weird roads where there aren't any cars, but all of a sudden, like one or two have popped up and driving through people sat on the roads, blah, blah, blah. And it's all building hysteria. It's all building anger. And consumers and media always tend to just sit there and believe everything that they see, of course, and it riles people up, and it starts forming a force of change and anger. And then when you suddenly get the media outlets kicking out these aspects of U-turns and energy bills are going to come really high in the winter, you get more aggression and more push for change. And this change solution is already here. I'm a big advocate, as many people are and theorists are, of create a solution, have it ready, create a problem, enter your solution. But in that midst of all that, guys, contractors, companies make a significant amount of money. This is about the transfer of money to the fourth industrial revolution, and a big part of that is for sure blockchain. In fact, the numbers are absolutely staggering here. The numbers are building by the year. By 2028, the blockchain utility in the energy sector will be around 4.2 billion. And this will be increasing significantly, as we talked about, those trillions of dollars of market value of the energy sector in general. And it's opportunity for the peer-to-peer energy topic as well. But this is the bill. We talked about this in the interviews and videos before, and it was roughly around the report stage and the third reading stage. So in this period of time, September has come along with the passing of the Electronic Trade Act, all of these things happening simultaneously, coincidentally at the same sort of time. And of course, the next stage is here, the consideration of amendments and royal assent. And a big part in the amendments at the moment of conversation, if you download the parliamentary publication documents for this, is all around the consultations and topics around community energy generators. What does this mean? It's very much orientated around peer-to-peer energy, guys, something that Power Ledger and Energy Web have significantly made advancements on over the last few years, both technologically and application of their solutions. Here's an example of one in Spain. POWR Ledger are doing great things over in Australia, and they're scouring across Europe, as are Energy Web Foundation, not just by themselves, but with other companies. I'm sure you're familiar with the likes of XRP Ripple with their joint application of energy solutions for a couple of years now. The blockchain ecosystem's working towards that zero carbon electricity factor, but more importantly, the implementation of DLT blockchain in this space. When we're talking things about transparency, the speed at which transactions can be operated, the validation of things, blockchain has a significant part to play in. This is why I'm very excited. Now, both these technological projects have their own arms within what they're doing, but the ultimate goal out there is to improve the energy sector significantly. Of course, Energy Web are doing great things with the European Parliament right now and the blockchain side of things as well, and POWR Ledger obviously doing their own things. A big huge element of community drive, a lot of case studies out there now of apartments being built with these self-sustainable energy solutions built in, and the ability to become a prosumer and sell excess energy to other users and formulate this lack of reduction in waste of energy and the costs of energy, because actually we can pass it around more. And it's a really bizarre theory, guys, to think about energy being passed around wirelessly and this, that and the other. And it's just how carbon credit has always operated. In fact, I remember a big hoo-ha about 10-12 years ago where there was carbon credit trading, and I don't know whether that was done through blockchain or exchanges, but there was a big massive debate around it, and a lot of people were deeming it as criminal activity and things. It was like literally the beginning stages of people realizing this option of utility and the ability to transfer energy worldwide in a different way. I don't think that was blockchain related at that time, but for sure it showed an ambition that things were changing. And actually, when big companies, especially in the energy sector, realize there could be an opportunity of threat here, they start making drastic actions. But this Energy Act isn't just about blockchain. There's a load of other aspects of the energy sector as well, and trying to supposedly protect the consumer and ultimately businesses as well, who are obviously feeling the pinch, certainly at the lower spectrum of businesses, the SMEs, not so much the large enterprises who have great contractors or people in the know or knowing people in those areas. So we enter this really interesting phase, guys. The rest of the world will follow. And I mentioned in the past, the Energy Act didn't specifically talk about DLT technology, but when you start talking about the community schemes, these are where blockchain gets integrated. You only have to do your research and the deep dives into some of these blockchain companies to understand that technological application is needed for this to occur. Now, this is part of a huge community energy sector organization here in the UK, Community Energy England. Pretty much there's a big scheme a couple of years ago that the UK government sent out a load of money and people could start their own projects and community building projects, right? And the ability of having their own community batteries or energy supply, whether it be a wind turbine for your city, your cul-de-sac, whatever. There's a load of different variations of this. But in this documentation, the vision for 2030 is the innovation of the system. We will lead innovations in the energy system and ensure they're available to communities nationwide. We use the trust we build with communities to enable behavior change using the new technologies of the energy system, such as peer-to-peer trading. Peer-to-peer trading can only be done via blockchain, guys, DLT. Energy efficiency, demand-side response, heat decarbonisation, and battery storage. There's also talks and topics in here about decentralization, again, which can only be done through blockchain technology. We are vital in creating a decentralized, community-controlled and resilient renewable energy system that has social justice and equality at its core. Now, governments and high levels of organizations don't care what companies make the money. Yes, for sure, for many decades it's about who people know and making those friendly contracts between each other. But there will come a point where blockchain will fully take this over, and that energy switch. This is why energy companies are really heavily involved, like EDF, for example, with Energy Web. They know what's coming. They know there's a threat to their companies moving forwards with EV increases, energy, electric cars, autonomous cars, all these things working with blockchain. They have to be ready for all of this. And this is where it orientates around the interesting points of the Agenda 30 program, World Economic 30 program, around energy, sustainability, community drive, community energy, And of course, these 15-minute cities, these hubs, the introduction of central bank digital currencies, basic universal income. Guys, the narrative is here for the years to come. But what's really interesting is when you start learning about this more, you start seeing the pattern, you start seeing how this is orchestrating itself and how these acts and laws will come into fruition with the use of DLT technology. You start understanding why you want to be holding or looking at projects relating to the energy sector in your portfolios. I've been talking about it for a long time. I don't know whether it goes on deaf ears, but if you haven't been used to or know of or hold any energy related projects in your portfolio, now is a perfect time to really research yourselves. I'm not sitting here saying you should or shouldn't have this in your portfolio. I certainly do, because I know what's coming and I know how big this opportunity is. It's very early, so please do not always anticipate your decisions on the price of a token or wondering why the price is so low. We are about to be on the brink of a significant change in trade finance and a giant change, a switch of mentality and transition of technology into the energy sector. We're talking about trillions upon trillions upon trillions of dollars market value here, guys. And to have a big share of that with blockchains such as Ripple, Energy Web, Power Ledger, there's a multitude of other ones on there as well. Algorand talks about sustainability in the energy sector as well. There's many of them. There is no right and wrong answer as to which one's going to win. I'm not that tribal. I'm more interested in the collaborations and the opportunity of the factor that not one chain is going to win this race for the energy sector. Absolutely not. And that's where we proceed in the diversification of our portfolios and how this is going to be progressing over time. There's some fascinating documentation here, which I'll provide as document links in the comments below or the description below. Some of these are a few years old now, but it's been something that's been on the agenda for a long time. Masses of money is coming into this, guys. And that's why we see narratives around U-turns, around insulating Britain and all of this stuff, because people like Sunak and people within that system and those policy creators know exactly what's coming and know exactly the technological advancements that are going to be replacing the old archaic ones that we keep talking about. If you're talking about insulating Britain, yes, of course, that is a short-term solution to try and reduce bills for people. But the ultimate factor is you have to ask the questions why the energy bills are so high in the first place. And actually insulating houses, yes, of course, it might improve the energy rating of your house, absolutely. And I'm not saying that they're totally atrocious or poor ways of reducing this energy crisis. The fact of the matter is there are bigger root problems here, and there's bigger solutions than people are thinking or seeing from these archaic ones that have been around for decades. It's time to move on. And if you are an investor or someone that's looking for the next applicable opportunities in technology innovation in the energy sector, it's coming from renewables, it's coming from green, things like hydrogen, synthetic, all of these kind of stuff. Some people are talking about heat pumps, which is a bit crazy, and there's pros and cons to that, obviously. But the ultimate factor is blockchain is a giant part of this, guys, and it's certainly something to really research yourselves more and more, further and further. And I'm going to leave a link to this fascinating article from sciencedirect.com about blockchain enables smart community for bilateral energy transaction. I'm not going to go into full detail about this, but it's absolutely phenomenal read around peer-to-peer trading. Gives you a hell of a lot more information than I could probably ever give you. As I said, I'm not going to read it word for word, but you guys will find it very interesting, I'm sure, and start adapting your minds to what this is about and how this is going to play out over these coming years. So hopefully that's a bit of an insight, guys. Let's talk about Power Ledger and, of course, the Energy Web token in general. So we'll look at both of those tokens respectively, one after the other. Of course, I just need to move it off VeChain right now. So first of all, let's start with Energy Web, EWT on the exchange. We have had significant drops in the EWT price. Now, I've spoken in the past about potential use of automatic market makers to try and keep EWT afloat, and I'm sure they probably had a bit of that going on. But in general, this is the lowest it's ever been. So we're in a bit of a risky scenario here in the sense that we don't know where the bottom is because there is no support or resistance levels beyond this point that we are currently at. So play with caution, guys. A lot of people staking EWT like I am, and I'm always looking for lower positions. I honestly cannot speculate or tell you where I think this is going to go. The only thing I can say is we drew this in a long time ago to say actually there could be opportunity for EWT at these lower regions of 150, 160, and it's coming into that area slowly but surely for sure. And in fact, way beyond those lower regions that we've seen at those 190 marks as well more recently. So let's keep an eye out for this, guys. As I said, it's a great opportunity to research the opportunities of blockchain DLT in the energy sector. But for sure, when you're looking at the price points, yes, the RSI on the bottom left here for EWT, 21 and 14 day, 31 and 28 day, is so low. And of course, it can still come down a bit low, and we're going to see some fluctuation around these particular areas of interest. But for me, I'm quite excited because I've accumulated EWT for some time. And seeing these lower regions is absolutely incredible, considering where the energy sector will be going over the years. And the previous all-time highs of EWT could be something to be excited about. In fact, in the last video of EWT, we saw the top ranges of $100 eventually, maybe by 2030. A significant $3,974 from one of the previous prices that we pulled out. But if I just drag this down to its current price point, and we drag it down to even the previous all-time high, that's a good 1,000% gain from its current point. If we were to say maybe it will hit the next range of the fib retracement levels and the next all-time highs between that $37 and $57, we're still looking at around 2,500% gain opportunity. But again, we don't know how low this is going to go. Sorry, 3,000 if I drag it down, which it's supposed to be. But if we do get down to these lower regions, the number increases even more significantly. But I just don't know where this is going, guys. It's quite important to really understand that we're in this risk momentum now with EWT, but looking at the opportunity of where it's going. Energy WebEx is launching properly at the moment. It's fully developing. So many changes may occur around this as well. But confidence drops out as these changes and evolutions occur. People start losing interest. It's a really interesting point to look at. So just keep that in mind. I can't really understand where this is going for retracement level because we don't even have any data lower than this to object where this might be going. So just keep that in mind in the back of your heads that if you're looking to accumulate EWT, just be aware of the risk that this is in a downward trend at the moment and it's hitting lower lows they've never been seen before in the EWT price. So please bear that in mind. Power Ledger, on the other hand, is becoming quite a stable token. I think this is a good credit to their team and what they're achieving case study wise around the world. They've done the fork of the Power Ledger token and its own chain being built as well, which is very exciting, utilizing Solana, etc. as well. We saw that increase back here around the 15th, 16th of July when that news came out. I'll leave a link to the interview video that we did with Dr. Gemma at the end of this one. But yes, currently floating around the 14-cent mark. The stabilization is looking really healthy, and it's just floating above previous numbers that we saw way back in 2021 and even back in 2019. So this is a project for sure of interest at these particular areas of accumulation. 51 on the 14-day, 49 on the 28-day as well. It's quite high in my opinion from accumulation from my personal perspective at the moment. I'm actually just waiting, but if you're new to Power Ledger or you're trying to accumulate for the first time, you have your own strategies and thought processes around this. But again, those all-time highs previously of around $1 do signify a really good opportunity for growth in the future for this one as well. In fact, I'll just draw this up quickly for you guys. At the current price point up to that all-time high, it's a good 500% gain. And if we look beyond that, perhaps to the next levels, in fact, sorry, I think the all-time high was actually $1.33. Sorry, it's even higher. But the point being is that from this point where we are currently, and even if we got to that 160 mark, that's a good 950% gain opportunity. But Power Ledger's got a humongous future ahead of it, as does Energy Web. There's plenty of opportunity at these micro levels of fib retracements to obtain Power Ledger at potential low areas, even back at these 10-cent marks, which is pretty much where I'm waiting for, is around the 11-cent mark-ish. But there's plenty of opportunity as well in the higher regions if you're new to Power Ledger, as I said. I think anything between sort of like the 20 and 10-cent mark for the long term is a really good steal for Power Ledger. Performance wise on the right side here, it's very generic. It's pretty much a match for most assets out there. I'm not going to go into too much detail around that, other than the fact that it kind of identifies a bit of stability here. We don't quite know what's going on with the market at the moment. It's going a lot of sideways trend. So that's where I said I think there's an opportunity to grab some Power Ledger and other tokens at lower regions, particularly for Power Ledger, POWR, around this 12-cent mark at the fib level. I think we'll do a retest, especially as there's limited data around that particular area in the history of the Power Ledger token on the chart. And again, I've got lower region purchases just under 10 cents as well. See if those come in. But I'm quite happy to accumulate even around this 12-cent mark if it drops back down. And that's where I think those RSIs on the bottom left will dictate play as well. So there's a few things to think about, guys. The energy sector is what it is. The development and the technology advancements are coming whether we like it or not. It's just now accommodating projects in our portfolios that relate to this and thinking long term, guys. As I said, not a lot of this stuff has been turned on. We're still in development stages, case study stages, speculative stages, of course, in some aspects. But the next 5 to 10 years, as we reach those 2030 targets of the energy sectors and climate change, etc., it becomes even more definitive in my mind of where this is all going and how exciting it is to hold some of these projects in my portfolio. Guys, I'm going to wrap that up there. Thank you for watching. Let us know if you hold EWT or Power in your portfolios and what you think about the industry as well moving forward, particularly in your own countries. It'd be great to hear if you've seen any legislation differences over the last 12 months like we're seeing here in the UK to take DLT into the energy sector. It's going to be exciting. We'll see you in the next one, guys. Bye bye.